Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Number the neighbor in 3B. I've always been a light sleeper. The slightest noise, a car door slamming outside, the hum of the refrigerator, even my cat's gentle purring, can jolt me awake. That's why when I first heard the scratching sound coming from the wall behind my bed, I noticed it immediately. It was 3 weeks after I moved into the Parkview Apartments, a pre-war building on the edge of downtown. The rent was suspiciously affordable for such a spacious one-bedroom, with original hardwood floors and crown molding. The listing had been active for months before I found it, which should have been my first warning. But I was desperate after my breakup with David, needing to escape our shared condo and the memories it contained. The scratching started on a Tuesday night in October. At first, I thought it might be mice. The building was old after all, but the sound had a deliberate quality to it. 3 slow scrapes, a pause, then 3 more, almost like someone trying to get my attention. I pressed my ear against the wall, listening. The scratching stopped immediately. Then, just as I was about to pull away, I heard something else, a soft, rhythmic sound, breathing. Someone was on the other side of the wall, listening just as intently as I was. I jerked away, heart pounding. That wall separated my bedroom from apartment 3B. I'd never met my neighbor, though I'd seen them a few times in the hallway, always at a distance, always hurrying away before I could offer a greeting. Just a tall, thin figure in dark clothes, head down, moving with an odd, stilted gait. The next morning, I mentioned the scratching to Mrs. Perlman in 3C, a chatty widow who'd brought me a welcome basket when I moved in. "Oh, that's just Mr. Gaines," she said, waving dismissively. "He's been in 3B for years, keeps to himself, probably just hanging pictures or something. At 3 in the morning," she shrugged, "he keeps unusual hours. Works from home, I think, some kind of researcher. Have you ever been inside his apartment?" A strange look crossed her face. "No one goes into 3B, she said quietly. Then, brightening artificially, "Would you like some more of those lemon cookies I brought you? I just made a fresh batch." I declined politely and headed to work, but her words stuck with me. No one goes into 3B. Like it was a rule everyone knew but me. That night the scratching came again. 3 slow scrapes, pause, 3 more. I tried to ignore it, pulling my pillow over my head, but the sound continued with mechanical precision. Finally I knocked on the wall, 3 sharp raps. The scratching stopped instantly. For several minutes there was only silence. Then, just as I was drifting off to sleep, it came again, not from behind the wall this time, but from my bedroom door. 3 slow scrapes, pause, 3 more. I sat bolt upright, staring at the door. My cat Luna crouched at the foot of the bed, ears flattened, eyes fixed on the door. "Who's there?" I called, my voice embarrassingly thin. No answer, but the scratching stopped. I heard the floorboards in the hallway creak, then silence. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next day, I decided to introduce myself properly to my neighbor. Maybe if we established some boundaries, the nocturnal noises would stop. I knocked on the door of 3B after work, armed with a bottle of wine and a rehearsed speech about being new to the building. No one answered, though I was certain I'd heard movement inside just before I knocked. I tried again the next day, and the next, always with the same result, sounds from within, then absolute silence when I knocked. On Friday, I ran into the building's superintendent, a gruff man named Horvath, replacing a light fixture in the lobby. "Excuse me," I said, "I'm having some trouble with my neighbor in 3B. There are strange noises at night and he won't answer when I knock." Horvath's screwdriver paused mid-turn. "What kind of noises?" "Scratching, on the wall between our apartments." "Always at night," he resumed, working, his face carefully blank. "Old buildings make noises, pipes, settling foundation, nothing to worry about. This isn't the building, it's deliberate. And last night it sounded like someone was outside my door," he sighed, climbing down from his stepladder. "Look, Mr. Gaines has been here longer than anyone. He's particular about his privacy. My advice, ignore the noises. Get a white noise machine. He's harmless." "How do you know that? Have you been in his apartment?" The same strange look that had crossed Mrs. Perlman's face now appeared on Horvath's. "We respect Mr. Gaines' privacy," he said stiffly. "And you should too. Trust me, it's better that way." He gathered his tools and walked away before I could ask anything else. That night the scratching started earlier, around midnight. 3 scrapes, pause, 3 more. Then something new, a soft tapping, like fingernails on the wall, moving in a circular pattern. "Stop it," I shouted, slapping my palm against the wall. "I'm trying to sleep." The tapping paused, then resumed, slower and more deliberate. I pressed my ear against the wall again and heard that breathing, but it wasn't coming from the other side anymore. Somehow, impossibly, it sounded like it was coming from inside the wall itself. I pulled away, grabbing my phone to call Horvath. Building rules about after-hours maintenance be damned. But as I dialed, I heard a new sound, a low, wet sliding noise, like something viscous moving through the pipes. It was coming from the bathroom. I followed the sound, pushing open the bathroom door. The shower curtain was drawn closed, though I was sure I'd left it open that morning. Behind it, a shadow moved, tall and thin, swaying slightly. I ripped the curtain open, nothing, just my empty bathtub, bone dry. But on the white porcelain something dark glistened, a handprint, too large to be human, with elongated fingers that tapered to points. I backed out of the bathroom, grabbing Luna and my phone. I spent the night at a 24-hour diner, drinking bad coffee and researching the building's history. The Parkview Apartments had been built in 1928, originally as luxury housing. Nothing unusual in its past, no famous deaths, no tragic fires. The building had simply aged, gradually shifting from upscale to middle class as newer developments sprang up downtown. I did find one odd detail, though. In a newspaper archive from 1976, a small article mentioned a disturbance at the building. Police responded to reports of strange noises and a foul odor emanating from an apartment. The tenant, described by neighbors as reclusive, was not found, though police noted unusual markings on the walls and ceiling. The case remains open. The article didn't specify which apartment, but I had my suspicions. When I returned home the next morning, there was a note taped to my door. Elegant handwriting on cream-colored stationery. Please stop knocking on my wall. You're disturbing my work. So he could hear me, but chose to ignore my knocks on his door. I was exhausted and angry, running on caffeine and fear. Instead of being intimidated, I found myself marching straight to 3B and pounding on the door. Mr. Gaines, we need to talk about the noises coming from your apartment. Silence, then a shuffling sound. The door opened a crack, held by a security chain. I couldn't see the person inside, just darkness. You're new, the voice was raspy, as if rarely used. The previous tenant understood the arrangement. What arrangement? You scratching on my wall at all hours. A pause. I don't scratch on your wall. I heard you last night. And the night before? No, the voice said softly. What you hear is not me, it's them. They live in the walls. I took a step back. Great, my neighbor was clearly unwell. Look, Mr. Gaines, they were here before the building, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. In the ground beneath us, when they built the foundation, they trapped some of them. They've been trying to get out ever since. Right, well, could you ask them to keep it down after midnight? Some of us have jobs. The door opened slightly wider, though still chained. I caught a glimpse of a pale face, deeply lined with dark hollows where the eyes should be. You think I'm crazy, he said. That's fine. The others thought so too at first, but you'll learn. They always make contact with the new tenants, testing, searching. For what? A way in. The door began to close. They can only cross over if invited. Remember that? Wait, but the door shut firmly, followed by the sound of multiple locks engaging. I stood there for a moment, unsettled. Whatever mental health issues Mr. Gaines had, Horvath should be addressing them, not telling tenants to just ignore the man's behavior. That afternoon, I bought a white noise machine and earplugs. I wasn't going to be driven out of my new apartment by a disturbed neighbor and some old pipes. I also picked up a door wedge and new deadbolt, still shaken by the handprint in my bathtub. As I was installing the deadbolt, Mrs. Perlman appeared in my doorway. Home improvements, she asked, smiling tightly. Just some added security, I replied, tightening the final screw. I had an unsettling experience last night. Her smile faltered. Oh, I told her about the scratching, the sounds at my door, and the handprint in the bathtub. As I spoke, her face grew increasingly pale. You should move, she said when I finished. Excuse me, find a new apartment, break your lease, whatever it costs, it's worth it. Her voice was urgent, her eyes darting to the wall I shared with 3B. It's not too late for you. Not yet, Mrs. Perlman, what are you talking about? Is Mr. Gaines dangerous? She shook her head vehemently. Not him, he's trying to contain it, has been for years, but it's getting stronger. The previous tenant in your unit, she started hearing the scratching too, then she began talking to it. Talking to what? Whatever lives in the walls. She said it was friendly. That it just wanted to come out for a little while. Mrs. Perlman's hands twisted together. The last time I saw her, she didn't look right. Her movements were wrong, jerky, like a marionette, and her eyes. She shuddered. 2 days later, she disappeared, left everything behind. Her family filed a missing persons report, but they never found her. I stared at her, torn between concern for her obvious delusion and a creeping unease. Mrs. Perlman, I think you should talk to someone, maybe your doctor. You think I'm senile, she snapped. I'm not. Ask anyone who's lived here more than a year. Ask about the others who have lived in 3A, they all hear the scratching. They all disappear eventually. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Gaines is the only one who survived because he knows the rules. He never lets them in, never responds to the scratching, never invites them across. A chill ran through me despite the absurdity of her words. Across from where? I don't know, another place, somewhere close but not here. They can reach through sometimes, make noises, create images. But they need permission to fully cross over. She squeezed my arm. Don't give it to them, no matter what they promise you. She left before I could respond, hurrying back to her apartment with the same fearful glances I'd seen from Horvath. That night I lay awake, the white noise machine humming beside me. Luna was unusually agitated, pacing the apartment and staring at the walls. Around 2 a.m., despite the machine's static, I heard it. 3 scrapes, pause, 3 more. Coming from inside the wall, I turned up the volume on the machine and pulled my pillow over my head. Through the synthetic rain sounds, I heard something else, a voice, muffled but distinct. "We know you can hear us." I sat up, heart racing. The voice hadn't come from the wall this time, but from the white noise machine itself, distorted but understandable through the static. "Just a dream," I muttered, reaching to turn the machine off. As my hand touched it, the static cleared for a moment. "Not a dream," the voice said, clearer now. "We've been waiting for you. The others weren't right, but you're perfect." I yanked the plug from the wall. In the sudden silence, the scratching resumed, louder now, more insistent, coming from all around me. The walls, the ceiling, the floor beneath my bed. Luna hissed, back arched, staring at a corner of the ceiling where the wallpaper had begun to bubble and peel. I grabbed her and my phone, running for the front door. As I reached for the knob, I heard a soft thud behind me. Something had fallen from the wall, a small chunk of plaster. In its place was a hole about the size of a quarter. And in that hole something moved, something wet and dark, pushing against an impossibly thin membrane that separated my apartment from somewhere else. I fled into the hallway in my pajamas, Luna struggling in my arms. Without thinking, I pounded on the door of 3B. To my surprise, it opened immediately. Mr. Gaines stood there, fully dressed despite the hour, looking unsurprised to see me. "They've made contact," he said simply, stepping aside. "Come in." Quickly, I hesitated only a moment before entering. Whatever strangeness awaited me in 3B couldn't be worse than what was happening in my own apartment. The interior was unexpected. I'd imagined squalor, the home of a disturbed recluse. Instead, the apartment was meticulously organized, every surface covered with books, papers, and strange instruments I couldn't identify. The walls were lined with symbols drawn in what looked like red paint, forming complex patterns that hurt my eyes if I looked at them too long. "Sit," Gaines said, gesturing to the only clear chair. "Your apartment is compromised. They've found a way to thin the barrier." "Who are they?" I asked, still clutching Luna, who had gone eerily still. Gaines moved to a cluttered desk, rifling through papers. "I don't know what they call themselves. I've been studying them for 30 years, ever since they took my wife." He glanced up, his hollow eyes fixing on me. "They exist alongside us, separated by a membrane between realities. Normally, that membrane is impermeable. But in certain places like this building, it's thinner. They can push against it, create weak spots." That's insane," I said, but my voice lacked conviction after what I'd seen. "Is it? You've heard them. Seen evidence of their attempts to cross over." He spread several photographs on the coffee table. "Look." The photos showed what appeared to be crime scenes, apartments in various states of disarray, walls broken open to reveal strange, glistening substances. And in several images, distorted human figures with movements captured mid-blur, their limbs at impossible angles. "These were all tenants of 3A, Gaines said quietly. "Going back decades, they all heard the scratching. They all eventually let them in. Let them in how? An invitation, permission. The membrane can only be breached from our side." He tapped one particularly disturbing photo, showing a woman whose face seemed to be melting, reforming into something else. "They start with noises, then voices. They offer things: knowledge, power, pleasure, whatever the person desires most. Once invited across, they take the person's form, but imperfectly. They're still learning how to exist in our reality." I thought of the handprint in my bathtub, too large, fingers too long. "What do they want? To replace us, one by one. They've been patient, working slowly, taking a single person every few years, learning from each one before moving to the next." I set Luna down, my hands shaking. "Why are you telling me this? Why not warn me before? I try to warn each new tenant, but most don't believe me until it's too late. And the building management, they know something is wrong here, but they prefer ignorance. Easier to blame the crazy old man in 3B than acknowledge the truth." He smiled bitterly. "Besides, as long as they keep putting new tenants in 3A, the entities focus there instead of spreading to other apartments. So I'm bait." I felt sick. "You were, but now you know, which means you have a choice." He handed me a small object, a silver pendant inscribed with the same symbols that covered his walls. "Wear this. It won't stop them completely, but it will slow their ability to communicate with you." I slipped the pendant over my head, feeling ridiculous but desperate enough to try anything. "What happens now? You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow you should leave, break your lease, move far away. And if I don't," his expression darkened, "then eventually you'll give in. Everyone does. The constant noises, the voices, the promises, they wear you down until letting them in seems like the only way to make it stop." He looked away. "My wife lasted 3 months, the tenant before you made it 6 weeks, the one before that barely a month." I spent that night on Gaines' couch, Luna curled tensely beside me. I didn't sleep, listening instead as he explained more about the entities, how they existed just out of phase with our reality, how they had been trying to cross over for centuries, finding thin spots like our building. They're patient, he said as dawn broke. They'll wait as long as it takes. When I returned to my apartment that morning, everything seemed normal. No scratches on the walls, no peeling wallpaper, no holes. Even the chunk of plaster I'd seen fall was gone, the walls smooth and unblemished. I packed a bag, planning to stay with a friend while I looked for a new place. As I was zipping my suitcase, my phone rang, an unknown number. Hello, silence, then a familiar voice, my own. Don't leave, it said. We have so much to show you. I hung up, hands trembling. The phone rang again immediately. This time it was David, my ex. Hey, he said, sounding surprised at himself. I know this is out of the blue, but I've been thinking about you. I miss you. My heart jumped. David had been clear when we broke up that he needed space, possibly permanently. This sudden reversal was exactly what I'd been hoping for. Really? I asked cautiously. Yeah, I made a mistake. I want to try again. He paused. Can I come over tonight to talk? Something felt off. David had never been so direct about his feelings, always hiding behind jokes and deflection. And his voice had an odd quality, like he was reading from a script, the intonation slightly wrong. I remembered Gaines' warning. They offer things: knowledge, power, pleasure, whatever the person desires most. Actually, I'm staying with a friend, I said. My apartment has some issues, maybe next week. A long pause. You're lying, said the voice that was no longer quite David's. You're still there, we can see you. I hung up, grabbed my bag and Luna's carrier and ran for the door. As I reached for the knob, every light in the apartment went out. In the sudden darkness, I heard the scratching start up again. From every wall now, a frenzied sound like dozens of creatures trying to claw their way through. The pendant Gaines had given me grew hot against my skin. I clutched it, fumbling for the door in the darkness. My fingers found the knob, turned it locked. I was certain I'd left it unlocked. Let us in, whispered voices from the walls. Just say yes. One simple word and the scratching will stop forever. No, I gasped, twisting the lock and yanking the door open. Light from the hallway spilled in and the scratching abruptly ceased. I fled to my friend Melissa's apartment across town, where I spent the next 3 days researching new places to live. I called my landlord and explained I needed to break my lease due to structural issues in my unit. To my surprise, he agreed immediately, even offering to return my security deposit in full if I signed a non-disclosure agreement about the maintenance problems I'd experienced. When I returned to pack the rest of my belongings, Horvath met me in the lobby. Heard you're moving out, he said, not meeting my eyes. Smart decision. You know what's happening in that apartment, I accused. You keep renting it out anyway, he shrugged helplessly. It's not my building, I just work here and he glanced at the ceiling, they only want 1 unit. As long as someone's in 3A, the rest of the building is safe. So you sacrifice 1 tenant at a time, that's monstrous. It's survival. He handed me a key. Your unit's been cleaned up. No charge, I took the elevator up, bracing myself for whatever awaited me. To my surprise, my apartment looked immaculate, better than when I'd moved in. Fresh paint covered the walls, and even the old water stain on the ceiling was gone. As I began packing my books, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Gaines stood there looking more haggard than before. You're leaving, good. He glanced past me into the apartment. They've reset the space. Preparing for the next tenant. How do you live like this? I asked, knowing what's on the other side of your wall. I don't live, I guard. He handed me a business card with just a phone number. If you start hearing scratching wherever you move to, call me immediately. They sometimes follow. I froze. They can follow me. Once they've identified a suitable vessel, they can be persistent, but distance helps. The further from this building, the weaker their connection. He started to turn away, then hesitated. One more thing, if you ever get a call from someone you know, someone offering exactly what you most want, don't trust it. That's how they find their way in. I finished packing in record time, making 2 trips to my car with boxes. On the final trip, as I was doing one last check of the empty apartment, I noticed something on the bedroom wall, 3 faint lines, freshly scratched into the new paint. I left the key on the counter and didn't look back. My new apartment is across the city, in a modern building with concrete walls and steel framing. No history, no character, and blissfully solid construction. For the first few weeks I jumped at every sound, but gradually I relaxed. No scratching, no voices, no strange calls. I still wear Gaines' pendant, though, just in case. Last week I ran into Mrs. Perlman at a grocery store. She looked surprised to see me. You got out, she said, relief evident in her voice. Not many do. Have they found a new tenant for 3A yet? I asked. Yes, a young man moved in 3 days ago. Her expression turned grim. It's already started. I heard him talking to the walls last night. I felt a stab of guilt. Should I have warned him somehow, left a note? It's not your responsibility, Mrs. Perlman said, reading my thoughts. None of us could have stopped it. That night, as I was falling asleep, my phone rang, an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message, when I checked it the next morning, was nothing but static and a faint, rhythmic sound in the background. 3 scratches, pause, 3 more. I deleted it and called the number Gaines had given me. No answer. The scratching started in my walls last night, just faint at first, easily dismissed as the building settling. But I know better now. I recognize the pattern, 3 slow scrapes, pause, 3 more, they found me. As I write this, the scratching has grown louder. The pendant grows hot against my skin, but its protection seems to be weakening. My phone rings constantly, calls from David, from my parents, from friends I haven't spoken to in years. Each voice offering exactly what I want most. I haven't answered, I haven't said yes, but I'm so tired. The scratching never stops now, not even during the day. I can see the wallpaper beginning to bubble in places, the membrane between realities stretching thin. Last night I drove back to the Parkview apartments, desperate to find Gaines. The building was dark, unnaturally so, as if the streetlights couldn't quite penetrate the shadows around it. His apartment was empty. Not just unoccupied, completely bare, as if no one had ever lived there. The walls were blank, no trace of the protective symbols he'd drawn. The superintendent I found wasn't Horvath, but a younger man who claimed to have worked there for years. He'd never heard of Gaines. According to him, 3B had been vacant for decades due to structural issues. When I asked about 3A, he gave me a strange look. There is no 3A, he said. Never has been. The building goes from 3C to 3B, then 3D, no 3A. I know what's happening. They're changing things, rewriting reality around me, isolating me. The scratching is coming from inside my bedroom wall now. 3 scrapes, pause, 3 more. If I press my ear against it, I can hear breathing, not from the other side, but from within the wall itself. I haven't slept in days, can't risk it. When I doze off, even for a moment, I wake to find things slightly changed. Furniture moved, windows open that I know were closed, Luna staring at empty corners with her back arched and fur raised. This morning I found 3 words scratched into the bathroom mirror. Just say yes. I don't know how much longer I can hold out. The pendant burns against my skin now, leaving a circular welt. My phone won't stop ringing. The voices on the other end sound increasingly like mine. They're wearing me down, just as Gaines said they would, making the idea of letting them in seem like the only way to find peace. Maybe it is. Maybe saying yes wouldn't be so bad. After all, whatever exists on the other side of that membrane has been patient, persistent, determined to reach me specifically. The scratching has stopped now. For the first time in days, there's silence. Instead, I hear a voice, my own voice, whispering from the wall. We can give you everything you've ever wanted. No more loneliness, no more fear, just say yes. My hand reaches toward the wall, fingers extended. I can see the membrane now, a thin, translucent film bulging outward, something dark moving behind it. Something waiting, just one word, that's all it would take. One word to make the scratching stop forever.